Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. I have a slightly early start here, so wait a bit before jumping in. Also gives me time to make sure everything is working properly and displaying properly. The training lasts roughly an hour and a half, slightly longer depending on load times. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat function to ask questions about features as I go over them. We do record the trainings, so if you can't stay for the whole time, that's perfectly fine. You can always come back, hit up our YouTube channel here, and find the most recent training, as well as any previous training. This also allows you to share the link with any other people who need to be admins on your Dash account. Now, generally speaking, we are here every Tuesday, and basically we're covering the same information. There'll be some changes as new features are rolled out. In fact, we'll be covering a change to the system on this particular session. And it's now 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. So here you see our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can get there from the Dash or the VirtualPBX pages by looking at the blue bar across the top and clicking on the login link there. I do generally recommend for admins to bookmark this page just to make it a little bit easier to get in. We need 3 pieces of information for you to be able to log in. The first is your email address. Right? That's your unique identifier for your user. We need your password, and then we need your account name, right? Which is typically your company name. Now, if you don't have that or you can't remember your password, then down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, there's a link here that says forgot your info. All right? Click on that, flip around. We still need your email address. And we need either the account name or a phone number on the account. Then you click on reset password. The system will send you an email with a link. That link lets you log in temporarily to change your password, and then it logs you back out. Then you come back here, enter in your email address, the password you just created, and then your account name. Also gives you the chance to click on the remember me box. One thing to remember about your username, you want to make sure that this is all in lowercase. Sometimes browsers put capital letters where you don't need them. Then let's go ahead and click on sign in. Oops. All right, so I'm using a test account and I log into this account several times a week. So by default, the system is going to take me here to the dashboard page, right? Just give me a snapshot of what my system is or its current status. If it's your first time logging in, the Dash wizard will pop up and start walking you through some things. So it basically starts you off on your account page, which is for your user. You can always get there by clicking up your name at the top right. The main thing that people change here is right here on their password, right? Just to change it to something that they'll remember. Now you'll have the Dash wizard giving you pop-ups about what things are. Over here on the left, as a system admin, you can also get to the account level settings. Most common thing that's changed here is the time zone and possibly the display language. You'll have a link here for billing, which will take you to basically ask you to fill out a form to get a code. So that way you can update your billing information. But once you're done here, you will click on close. You'll be here on the dashboard page. So at the top page, again, you can click on your name at any time to get to that account page. Primarily, that's what you would do to change your own password. Most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, which is for do not disturb. You would click on that to turn it on, which means it's mostly white. And that means you're just not taking calls. Right? Calls to you are going to go to voicemail. The reason I don't have it is my user is part of an ACD queue, and the call center, the ACD queue / call center features doesn't play well with the do not disturb toggle. So once you're added as a queue member, the D&D toggle will remove from your interface. Next, we have the help icon, right? Little question mark. These three fields will always show up for basically any admin. First up is chat with us. This opens up a chat window at the bottom right of your browser window, and basically you're chatting in real time with a support team member. It may be necessary to have two tabs open when you do this. We've had customers mention that the chat will block out part of the UI and make it hard to click like next or save or what have you. Learn more. This will open up a new tab and take you directly to our support pages. So you can see the guides that we have created with screenshots typically and or videos of how to set up a particular feature. Online store. This also opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, and this is where you would order a VoIP phone or a router, among other things. Now, this fourth option here, space, this can be populated. What happens here is if you add a web phone to your user, then typically by the next time you log in, there'll be a link here for the web phone. That will open up a new tab, take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer, right? So the desktop versions of those browsers to make and receive calls. Three horizontal line icon or the menu icon, sometimes referred to also as the hamburger icon. This will take you to other dash features. For the most part, we are going to be here in the dashboard. That's the majority of the training, but we will touch on these other ones at the very end. The call center here, that's the new, quote, new one, and that's just the renaming of the ACDQs and ACDQs Pro. Everyone is now part of the call center. This typically opens up a new tab, so you have to log in again, just uses your dash login information, and then you can get to the call center. Again, this just happened over the weekend, so I don't know how well that's going to display here on the training video or stream. So if it doesn't work properly, I do apologize ahead of time. And then here we have the logout icon, right? Just to log you right out of your Dash account. All right, so here in the middle, we have your account name. Then we have total users. I have 23, right? This means I have 23 people who make and receive calls on my account. Since the majority of our plans are based on the number of users you have, and the more users you have, the higher your bill. Something to be aware of. Then I have total devices. I have 37 devices on my account, and a little breakdown here. First up, I have soft phone. This is software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So this is a VoIP device. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone or any third-party soft phone you may be using. And then, it notes how many you have. Next up, you have the web phone, right? That Chrome or Firefox device, right? Lets you use those browsers to make and receive calls. These are technically soft phones, so they are VoIP devices. Something to be aware of. SIP phone, again, another VoIP device. This is physical hardware, right? So this is a Yealing phone or Cisco phone, Polycom, right? Piece of hardware sits on a desk, typically connected via Ethernet to your internet connection, and then you make and receive calls on that. And then we have cell phone, which most of us are aware of. Unregistered devices, right down here, saying I have two. This is in reference to my SIP phones. It's saying two of them are just unregistered. And that just means we can't communicate with that device. That could be it's not plugged in, or someone's not logged in. It could be that there is an internet outage, right? So someone's, lost internet connection at their home, right? Because they're working from home. Could be that just a router setting, right? Something screwed up and now can't register that device. All right, then we have total phone numbers. I have 33 phone numbers on my account. Your account usually includes at least some amount of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Once you go over that allotment, then you're getting charged on a per number basis per month. Generally speaking, I am paying an overage on numbers. I think the typical range I've seen is anywhere from 1 to 15 is typical. But I'm not in sales, so I don't know what the current pricing is on that, so I apologize. Then we have a breakdown here. First one is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Right? An assigned number means you're making use of it. Right? Someone can dial that number and expect to either speak to someone or leave a voicemail, send a fax, join a conference. Right? It's in use in some fashion. Spare number, still on your account, so still counts towards your allotment. You're just not currently using it. For instance, you were just having a promotion for Christmas or New Year's. Now that's well in the rear mirror. Like, let's take that number out of service so we're not getting calls on a promotion that's no longer functioning in use. Likewise, if you're about to expand to a new city, has a new area code, you could grab a phone number ahead of time so you can start producing your marketing materials for that number ahead of time before it's actually ready to go. Down here, next breakdown, you have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So number in Miami, Florida, USDID, same as if you had one in Spokane, Washington. Can have international phone numbers if you're interested. You'd want to email our porting team, and that's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. And if we can get it, they will let you know one way or the other. But if there's additional requirements from that country, we'll also let you know what those requirements are. Those need to be met before we can get the number for you. Next up, we have conference bridges, and I have 5 of them. And that just means I have enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference for 5 of my users. We're going to go up here to the top right where it says main number. And these 4 phone numbers, they all behave the same way. They're all going to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Right? You can obviously have multiple main numbers. Then we have the conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want. They're all going to the same set of conference rooms. And this is the number everyone would dial to join the conference. So whether they're your clients or your vendors or your staff members, they all start by entering that phone number. And then they'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Then we have the fax box number. You can have one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. It also enables faxing on an account as a whole. But again, it's generally designed to be, hey, this is your main fax box number that people typically fax to. All right, then we have the company directory. This lets you download a CSV file, and that way it will show your staff members' names, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. Soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You download this file, you upload it to our soft phone app on your Windows or Mac PC, and this will allow you to see the status of the other soft phones on the account, or the other VirtualPBX soft phones on the account. Right, so if my colleague Mike is on a call on his soft phone, from my soft phone, I can see that he's on that call. Right? But now if Mike has multiple devices, let's say he's got the VirtualPBX soft phone, but he also has a Yealink phone and his cell phone, I'm not going to see if he's on a call on his Yealink phone or his cell phone. Right? I'd only be able to see it the soft phone. Right. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use within the online store. That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then the account realm, this is used for a couple things, right? Every account has their own realm. One of the things it's used for is to program a third-party soft phone application or device. It's one of 3 pieces of information you would need from the dashboard to get that software or device working. The other thing it's used for is to send out a fax. So currently on Dash, when you send out a fax, you actually don't need to log into your Dash account. You just need to use an email address that's associated with your user. Right, so you create an email like you normally do. In the to field, put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're sending to, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. It does not look at the subject line. It does not look at the body of the email, right? So anything you type in those two spaces does not get transmitted. The system is only going to send one attachment per email, and it's PDF or TIFF, and you want to keep it under 7 megabytes. Back here towards the top, we have caller ID. We click on this button, it expands out, and this is for your company caller ID number up here. So this is, you can select any of your main numbers, right? So this is, I have 4 to choose from, although the pull downs, oh, actually, let's check. Sometimes the pull downs don't work on the streaming software, but this allows you to select your default number, right? So this number, this 408 number I have right here, that becomes the default number for all of my VoIP phones when they make an outbound call, for example. Then we have the company caller ID name, or CNAME. This allows you to enter 15 characters. That includes special characters or even space, right? So I have a space here between these two words. That still counts as one of my 15 characters. This is optional, but this allows you to put text as part of your outbound caller ID. And then you have the company emergency information, or E911. System wants you to input a North American address, and then you click on Save Changes. Now, if you do choose to put the company caller ID name information here, it takes about 3 days for the other carriers who support CNAME to update their databases. Right, 3 business days. Sometimes they're faster, usually, sometimes they're not. There's some caveats to know about CNAME. Right? CNAME has 2 parts to it. One is referred to as provisioning. That's what we do, right? This is what you've just done, is when you update the information here, you're provisioning the CNAME information for your phone number. Right? Once it gets updated to all those other carriers, when you make an outbound call, this information, right, in this case, Atlas Park, that is getting transmitted as part of my outbound caller ID. The other side of it is the delivery, right? That's the other, right? So I reach out, I send call through. Let's say it goes through all carriers. It happens to go through carriers who all support CNAME, right? That's not necessarily true, but we'll say in this case it is. It reaches the phone number I'm trying to reach. That carrier that hosts that phone number, they decide, first and foremost, are they going to accept the CNAME information we're sending? Right? They can choose not to. If they choose not to, then they said, okay, we're going to look up this number. This is the information we have for that number. And then they input it as a CNAME information for the phone on their network. Or they can choose, no, we're not sending any CNAME information. We're just sending the number through. So that delivery end, we can't control that. This is especially true for when you're calling cell phones. The cell phone carriers do not typically participate in CNAME. And in fact, most of them want to charge their subscribers an additional fee per month to have the ability to have CNAME show up on the cell phone. Most people don't typically spend extra on their cell phone bill, so it would be, don't expect basically your CNAME information to show up on calls to cell phones on a consistent basis. Hold music. So your dash account allows you to upload your own media files. You would just click upload here, find the file on your computer by clicking browse. The system will play back .mp3 and .wav files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. Now, the system will play back stereo files. However, that takes up your file size space. So if you record in mono, you can have a longer media file in play. But once you find the file on your computer, you click the little up arrow icon and then click on Save Changes. The system will then upload the file and update. And then whenever a call comes into your user, and your user presses hold, or the hold button on their VoIP phone, that's when this hold music file will play. All right, hours is actually part of main number. So let's just go to main number. All right, so up here at the top, you have your main company numbers. So these are those 4 numbers we were just seeing on our dashboard page. If you want to reuse a number, right? So let's say this 346 number, I don't want it as a main number anymore. I want to use it someplace else. I would click unassign next to it. Now, I'm not removing it from my account. All I've done is say I'm no longer using it as a main number, which means I can use it someplace else. Right? In terms of adding numbers, down here at the bottom, you have two options. You have by numbers or add from spare. Right? So add from spare, if you click on this, this will show you your available numbers that you have in your spare number tab. It'll say, hey, which one of these do you want to use here? Right? So you would click on the box in front of a number, click on add selected, and the system will and then you see here it's ready to go. Now, by numbers, this is just how the system adds numbers to your account. Right? So let's say you just signed up, you have one number, and your account includes 5 phone numbers. When you click on buy numbers and go through the process, you're not going to be billed for another number, right? Your account includes 5. So up until then, there's no additional charge that's going to happen to you. So anywhere you can add a number, right? You have this option to buy, which just means add. And then you have your options here for local or toll free. Toll free, again, that's US Canada toll free, 800 number, 833, 844, 855, etc. You choose the prefix you want to work with, you click on search, and the system will give you a list of phone numbers. Eventually, there we go. Right, and then you just scroll down the list until you see the number or numbers that you want to add to this location. So we can just add this one here. Right, you see I have one in my cart, it shows a number, I can delete it. Now, at this point, I haven't done anything, right? It's not on my account. So if I walked away, let's say went to lunch, and came back and tried to complete it, it's possible that this would fail. So this list is a dynamic list, meaning you're actually competing with people in real time. So once you find numbers you like, you want to go ahead and click on buy numbers. So now the system is verifying that the number is truly available, i.e. someone didn't grab it while I was talking, and then it's adding it to the account. Sometimes it takes a little while for the system to do all of that. And then you see it's added here. Local, slightly different in that you have to know the area code that you want to work with. So when you do a search, even for the toll-free numbers, you can get this message here, right? And this is just saying there's no readily available numbers in this area code, i.e. it's exhausted. 310, for instance, is in Los Angeles. So what you would want to do is I normally just go to Google and so I search, area code 310 overlay. And that would tell me that the overlay for 310 is area code 424. And you can also find nearby area codes, right? Like Wikipedia would have, like, here's a map of all the area codes in that area. Anyhow, so an overlay just means multiple area codes that cover the same geographic location, right? So they have the same boundaries. So here you would just go through and, again, find a number you like or multiple, and then click by numbers to complete the process. All right, once numbers are added, anywhere you have a number, you can click here on the little gear icon. You can update the caller ID, 911, or prepend. All right, caller ID, right? This is where you update that outbound company name information, so 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. This one here, this turns on the ability to accept inbound CNAME, right? So that way that information gets transmitted to your staff members on their phones, which I personally find useful. And then we got E911. Each phone number can have its own E911 address associated with it. Right? This is especially useful as more people are working remotely. So that way, the reasoning for having each phone number have its own E911 is then you can assign those phone numbers to a specific VoIP phone, right? And VoIP phones can share the same address, right? You have a office location where 5 people work. You could set up their 5 VoIP phones to have their specific address, right? So if they pick up their VoIP phone, dial 911, the correct address gets transmitted to emergency services, right? You wouldn't want, you know, the ambulance to go to the wrong building, right? Or the wrong city. Or, it's like, hey, that's the wrong city. That's not going to help anybody. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Right? Gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. The purpose of that. And then you would, and for any of these, right, once you're done, you would click on Save Changes. I'm going to go ahead and unassign phone numbers just so I don't have too many on the account. So once you have numbers, a main number in place, then you can click down here under Office Hours Strategy. 24-hour open office, that just means you're open 24/7, meaning your system will accept calls, right? It's not going to ring busy. All right, custom office hours, that means you're saying, hey, I'm open at particular times or days of the week, other times I'm closed. When you do that, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a little check mark in front of that day. And then in these boxes here to the right, you set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. So you see here, I'm open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And I'm based in LA, or my time zone is Pacific time. Now down here towards the bottom, you also have the option to set your system into lunch mode at the same time every day. Right, you put a little check mark here. You set your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. And then when you're done, you click on Save Changes. Next up, you have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a little check mark here. Then over here to the right, where it says Add Holiday, you have the options for single day, date range, and advanced. Oops, did not mean to do that. All right, so each one of those from the dropdown creates a new row, right? So you give it a name. So this I would probably say New Year's Eve, but someone put the full date. Then you select the month and the date, and then you click on Save Changes. All right, date range like I have here for Xmas break. Again, gave it a name, start date, end date, save changes. Now, as a precaution, we recommend to not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, just because there's no year indicator. Now, I haven't run into any system having a problem with that, but it's something that we just say, hey, just to be safe, try not to do that. Advanced is like I have up here for Thanksgiving. Again, gave it a name. I chose the month. Now, this second pull down, which again, not working, first through fifth or last are your options, and then you choose the day of the week, right? And then Save Changes. If you wish to remove a holiday, right, you click on the little trash can icon and then click on Save Changes. And now we have incoming call handling. So for those 4 main numbers, how do I want my system to handle the calls during my open hours, during my lunch hours, which I thought I did not save on, but after hours, and then my holidays. Now, these first 3 options down here, right under where it says that we're under the sentence here, the first 3, this will always show up for every account. This 4th one only shows up under a couple circumstances. One of those is if we had to set up a special call flow for you, right? So you had some custom work done. If you're making use of direct inward system access, DISA, or if you have multiple auto attendants on your account and you made one or more of those auto attendants available in a main menu, then this would also show up. All right, so during my open hours, I have been calls come into my virtual receptionist. This is a link. So when I click on it, a big old box will open up. And you see there's a couple sections we're going to be working with here. So first up, main menu. This is where you set up what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. Down here, you have add route. You click on that, it creates a new row. First pull down, you have the option of, here, I think, maybe, nope. 0 through 9, the star key and the default action. And then on the second pull down, where do you want it to go? Right, so you've got this, the PBX directory, right? So username directory. You can go to a specific person, right? A user. Go to a call queue if you're making use of the call center feature. You can send it to groups, right? So departments. Groups and queues are related. Groups are free. Queues are an upgrade feature. You can send it to a specific device, meaning a specific phone, but the system will only offer to it for about 20 seconds, and then that's the call will end. Voicemail box, right? You can press 0 to leave a voicemail. Pretty common feature or system setup. You can also have it play a media file, right? So a greeting file, right? This would be like if you're gonna have it play like your hours of operation or your directions. However, once the media file stops playing, the call ends. All right, over here on the right, first up, we have our greetings, and these are your greeting options. So the greeting is where you say thank you for calling. You typically can say your organization's name, and then directions, right? How to navigate through a system, right? This is where you tell them press 1 to speak to sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. First option is text to speech. This allows you to type in a greeting directly into the system. It will then replay it back on a computerized or robotic voice. This text to speech greeting is limited to 250 characters, not words. Right? So it's not gonna, you can't have it super long or in depth, but it's a good thing to use for if you're just getting started, right? You're a startup company where you're not used to PBX systems, just to get your feet wet basically, and see how it's going to work. Now, the system doesn't allow you to name this text to speech greeting because it names it for you. In this case, it would name it my main, right? Open hours, menu, and then TTS, right? So main open hours menu TTS. That's what this greeting is named. If I come back here and I edit this, I add a line because let's say I forgot a menu option, right? I click update, save, and save changes. Now I'm going to have 2 files that are called main open and main open hours menu TTS. And just by the file names, I'm not going to know which one is which. So my recommendation, if you make use of text-to-speech greetings, after each one you create, on the left-hand side, you want to click on the greetings tab. So you'd have to close this out, but it'd be on the left. There you can change the file name, right? Just main greeting 1, just so you know where you started and then you know which one is which, hopefully from there. Next option, you can upload your own file. Right? You choose the file. Again, and the system will select whatever file name you have here for it. .mp3, .wav, or coded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then you would click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording, right? So this is a pull down. It's going to show all your media files, right? Whether they're hold music, voicemail greetings, or main greetings. So you want to make sure you have names that you can easily identify what is what. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system says pick up a phone that is registered to the account. What that really means is pick up a VoIP phone you have on the account. That's a security feature. Now, if you want to use a cell phone or landline, then down here under settings, you want to click this one here, allow outside recording, turn that on, save changes, and then you can come back here. Once you turn that on, now, and you've clicked save and save changes, you can then call anyone, you can call in from a cell phone or a landline and attempt to record a greeting over the phone. The thing is here is you also need this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So it only works during my open hours. So if I called in at 7 p.m., which is after I've closed, I try to enter this PIN number, the system won't recognize it. It'll say that's an invalid entry. So I can only change my open hours greeting during my open hours. So if you just signed up with us, right, when you first call into your system, when you call in, the system will say, the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet, and then it will prompt you to enter your PIN number. Right, you record it, it then gives it a file name, typically includes part of your account number in it. If you already have a file in place, so let's say we have that main open hour menu TTS file, and then I call in because I'm like, oh, my customers have been complaining. It says they're not sure who it is, or they'd be more comforted by hearing my voice, I can still call in, right? And if I have this, right now I have it set up so I can call in from my cell phone. I'd hear that existing main greeting file play. When it's playing, I can enter in this PIN number. The system will recognize it and then walk me through recording a new greeting over the phone. It doesn't give me an opportunity to give it a file name. So in this instance, it would reuse the existing file name, right? So main open hours menu TTS, but instead of what I've typed up here previously, it's going to use whatever I just recorded over the phone. All right. Professional recording services. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They have 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, various versions of English. They have their own pricing and packages. They bill you, right, via credit card, and then they send you the file via email. And then you would simply just go back up here to upload your own file. All right, settings. So first up here, number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So they have one built-in attempt automatically, right? So here you'd enter anywhere from 0 to say 5. You probably wouldn't want to go much more than that. I usually recommend 2 to 3. So call comes in, your caller hopefully listening to your message. But let's say in this case they press 5. Oh, that's not a valid attempt, not a valid extension. The system says, oh, okay, well, I'll give them a retry because that's what my settings are set at. The greeting plays again. Inbound caller still presses 5. Well, now the system says, well, they only had one retry, and this is their second one, right? So they don't get a second one. So in that instance, the system says we did not recognize your entry, and then says we're transferring your call. And it's transferring my call because I have a default action. Right? If I remove the default action, right, click the little X there, after that failed attempt, right, that last one, this says that we did not recognize your entry, and then says goodbye and ends the call. Now, there's pros and cons for having the default action in that instance. The main pro for not having a default action there is because of robodialers, right? Especially on 800 numbers. When you have calls come in, you're probably going to have more robodialers. And if you give them a route to continue, right, that just uses up minutes on your account. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system gives the inbound caller to press buttons, right, to enter a multi-digit extension number, right? So caller calls in, presses 5. The system waits for 10 seconds in this case, and waiting to see if the person enters in more digits for an extension number. You know, after that time, it would say, oh, invalid entry, right? Or give another retry. I usually recommend changing this down to 5 or less, with the hope that people are, you know, have the information handy so they can get the extension number and then they can enter it if they don't already have it memorized. All right. Allow outside recording. We already covered. That's for recording a main greeting with a cell phone or landline. Now, by default, it's off, right? That's, as I said, it's a security feature. We recommend that after you're done recording over the phone with your cell phone or landline, you come back here and turn it back off. That way someone doesn't just try to do it randomly and changes your main greeting on you. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and that just means if an inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If you turn this off, which will be right here, right, that means when an inbound caller calls in, they can only press a menu option. Right? If they enter an extension number, the system treats it as an invalid entry. And then down here, we have the suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if when a caller calls in, right, and they keep entering the wrong options, if you don't want the system to tell them that we did not recognize their entry and goodbye, you'll turn this on, right? And so that way the system just says goodbye. Now, if you have a default action in place, right, then the system doesn't say anything. It just the inbound caller hears ringing because as we transfer the call to wherever you set the default action to go to. So any changes you make to your main menu, to your greetings, or these settings, you want to click Save here, right? It takes you back to your incoming call handling, and then you want to click Save Changes here. So you're clicking Save twice. All right. Second option here, calls come in. I'm offering it to my front desk ring group, right? This is a live operator answer option, right? So in terms of offering it to group, I'm offering it to several staff members at once in hopes that they'll answer the call and then help the caller, right? Transfer them as necessary or what have you. If none of my staff members in that group can answer the call, then it goes to, in this case, my after hours virtual receptionist. Now, up here where it says front desk, right? This is a pull down. Generally speaking, most people select it, have it going to a user, right? So a specific person, right? Call queue, which would be typically several people, or a group, which is usually several people as well. Mostly everything else, you could send it to a specific device, right? So one phone rings for 20 seconds. Beyond that, typically nothing else is recommended. And then when you click on virtual receptionist, again, this is a link, but you're going to that times virtual receptionist, right? So in this case, after hours. So I would have a different greeting play here than versus my open hours and potentially different routing. But beyond that, it's the same thing, right? You would click on add route to create more options, click on your greeting options to create the greeting and adjust your settings. Here, I have the options. In this case, I'm sending callers straight to a voicemail during my holidays. Right? Now, this pull down, right? You still have the same options of I can send it to another user, I can send it to a group, an ACD queue, a device. In this case, you could also select a media file, right? Just saying, hey, we're closed for whatever holiday. And then here, this pull down is you select which voicemail box specifically you want the messages to go to. Right? For any of these, in this case, I can also send callers to a secondary auto attendant if I wish them to. Like, one business is temporarily closed. Here, let's put this one in place for now, etc. Right, main conference number. As I mentioned before, you can have multiple conference room numbers. Right? You can add from zero by new. Once you have conferences in place, click here. It says, oops, custom conference greeting. You can click enable. It's a text-to-speech greeting. And then you would click on save. If you left this disabled, the system still says welcome to the conference and then prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box number. You can have the one main fax box number, which is why I don't have the option here to add the spare by new. Once you have a fax box number in place, you can click edit on the fax box. And you've got two fields that you can fill out. The first one is the inbound email notification. Designed to put in an email address here. And whenever a fax comes through, that email address is sent an email. It has the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, and a PDF attachment of the inbound fax. Now, if someone happens to dial your main fax box number from their cell phone, right, they hear fax tones, most people would hang up. Well, that still generates an email for the email address you have in the notification field here, right? Now, instead of a PDF attachment, they just get an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Here's the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, etc., but no PDF. Now, sometimes caller ID information, the caller ID name information is also transmitted. So like if you see a phone number and it says wireless caller, that was someone dialing from their cell phone, you can ignore that email. But if it's a phone number you're expecting a fax from and it didn't get through, that's where you would want to double check with the other person and to find out, what's going on or what they ran into. Email permissions. This is designed to put your company's email domain here, right? So at virtualpbx.com, right? That means anyone at virtualpbx.com can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on this particular account. right? They just need the proper format, that +1 area code and phone number, the @ symbol, the account realm, right? And then attach a PDF or TIFF. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, next up is auto attendance. This is actually a plan-specific feature, right? So it's available on some plans, but not others. There's a couple use cases for having multiple auto attendants. One is for submenuing, right? So if you want, callers call in and press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish, right? You probably repeat that in Spanish. You would then create secondary attendants, one in English, one in Spanish. They would have the greetings in the relevant languages, and the menu options would go to people who speak the appropriate language. Right. The other use case that we've come across is when people have multiple businesses that they run, and they have staff members for answering calls on these multiple businesses at the same people. So instead of having 2 separate accounts with us or 4 or whatever, they instead say, you know what, I'll just create them as a separate auto attendant on my main account. So therefore I have less billing headache, right? Typically helps them save some money. Now, there are some limitations with that, and we'll cover that as we go through this a little bit more. Up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant. You need to give it a name and give it an extension number. The extension number is not something any of your customers would necessarily know. It's mostly for your staff, right? They could transfer callers from one attendant to the other if they need to. After that, you would click on Create Attendant, and then it would show up here in this list. Now, when you click on the name, it shows up like this. This is the default. It says unavailable in main menu, and that just means it's a standalone attendant. So basically, if someone calls your main number, they're not going to be able to get to this attendant on their own. They would have to be transferred. Or they need a phone number directly that goes to this attendant. Right here, you can delete an attendant you're no longer using. But right here, this where it says unavailable in main menu, you can click on that. And now it says available in main menu. Right, so now this can be a menu option off of your main number. Right, this could be a next action option off a group or off of a queue. Right, so there are other ways for callers to get to this auto attendant from your main number that we were just those 4 main numbers we were just looking at. Right, so this is what you would do for a submenu. Right? So if you want English and Spanish, or let's say you press 1 for customer service, and then that customer service, right? Say this says customer service instead. It's available in main menu. It has its own menu option, and you have a particular greeting for your customer service team, and then you would have another one for your sales team. Press 1 for sales, right? Sales goes here. For international sales, press 1 again. For domestic sales, press 2. For returns, press 3 or something. Excuse me. Now, groups can have their own phone numbers, right? You can buy numbers or add from spare, right? So an auto attendant can have its own or multiple phone numbers if you want. And you see here, you've got the little gear icon, so you can update the caller ID, the E911. You can, excuse me. You can have attendants have multiple extension numbers, although typically not a big reason to. And then here you got the little wrench icon here under settings. And then you see here, I have open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. So these times match what we set up under my main number. So as long as all of your businesses, right, that have their own auto attendants match the hours of operation of your main company number, you're fine. But for instance, you have one business that's 24/7 versus another business that's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you're going to run into a problem, right? Because now your auto attendant, let's say your auto attendant business is 24/7. I mean, you could set it up so that way each time matches the way you want it to route, right, all day. But that's not super intuitive right out of the box. So in that kind of situation, you'd want to talk to our account services team Um, it's possible they would want to do a custom build for you, uh, or maybe it's better like in case like you, especially if you need to change greetings often or make a lot of changes to the auto attendant for that secondary account. They may say it might be easier to have a second account. But again, they're best suited to determine what's best for you and also what the costs would be involved for both situations. All right, next up is devices. The device tab shows your devices that you have on the account, whether you're using them or not. If they're on the account, they're there. Now, red means it's unregistered, so we can't send a call to it, right? Now, for soft phones, it could be they're not logged in, right? For physical VoIP phones, that means they may not be plugged in, right? Let's say the dog ran by and ripped out cables out of the router. Now you're like, okay, I have to, figure out what to plug in where, that sort of thing. A green device means it's registered, so we can send a call to it. Black means we have, or you have on your display here, turned it off. Up here at the top, you can add new devices. A SIP phone, just like that. That's that physical piece of hardware, right? You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models to choose from. Some of them don't. No matter what, though, you need the make and the model. And then here, you need to give it a device name, right? So I normally say the person's name phone, right? So Bob's phone, or its location, warehouse phone, right? Just somewhere to, so that way you can easily recognize where that phone is or who is using it. Some customers just name their phones phone 1 through whatever, or A, A, B, C, etc. I find that kind of confusing over the long haul, but to each their own. Then need the MAC address. This is a unique alphanumeric number for each phone, often a sticker on the back or bottom of the phone. If phone's plugged in, you can also typically find this under like basic settings or status, just called MAC, M-A-C. Just enter that information here. Then you would click on create device. As far as our dashboard is concerned, there's 2 other steps you would need to do. One would be go over to users and assign it to a user. The other, and if I go here, you would click on the little wrench icon, go to advanced miscellaneous, and then where it says allow provision, click unlock, right? And then save changes. That basically tells our system, hey, this phone is getting ready to be provisioned. Make sure it has access. Within our dashboard, that's all you need to do. However, for this phone, you would want to log into that phone's user interface. That typically means getting the IP address of the phone, putting that IP address in the address bar of your browser. That computer does need to be on the same network as that phone. You would then get a login page, you would log in, and then you need to get to the auto provision section of that phone's user interface and enter in a URL. Right? Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. The phone would, gets on the internet, goes to that address, grabs this config file. It's going to reboot a couple times, and then it would show up as a green device. Now, for the specifics of that, right, for the various manufacturers, we have a document on our support pages called Auto Provisioning Phones. And all you do is follow the screenshots, right? You get screenshots for the various manufacturers. There's some settings that they'll have you double check, but the main thing is that URL, and then you should be good to go. One thing to also keep in mind is for physical VoIP phones, for audio, typically want G711A and G711U over here on the right under selected for codecs. For most soft phones, you want Opus, O-P-U-S, which is right. This is not needed as much for a physical phone, but for soft phones, we typically do recommend Opus. The other thing to keep in mind is under advanced emergency caller ID, right? This is where you would select a phone number that you've added an E911 address to, like we have here. So that way this phone if someone picks up this particular phone, dials 911, this is the address information that's transmitted to emergency services. Right, so you can do that for each phone, for each of your different phone numbers. Right, cell phone and landline are basically the same. Put a name, right? Bob's phone. And then under number, you put +1 area code and phone number, right? No spaces, no dashes, no parentheses. And then you would click on create device. Down here to the demo device, right? So we gave it a name. Here's +1 area code and phone number. We go to advanced and options. This is the default setup for a cell phone or landline on a Dash account. Now, in terms of how the system handles a call to a cell phone or landline, first and foremost, you should know that when we send a call to a cell phone or landline, that's a final destination. Right? That when you pick up the call on your cell phone or landline, you're not going to have the ability to transfer that call to another place in your Dash account. Now, under these default settings, when we send a call to the cell phone number or landline number, right, the phone rings, someone picks up, and then you'll hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there. Yes, you want to take this call, right? System hears that tone, connects the call, you begin speaking to the person. Now, that's great if you're actually sending calls to an actual person on the other end of that phone number. However, let's say you've contracted out with an automated answering service to handle your after-hours calls. They gave you a phone number saying, hey, just send any calls you want us to handle to this phone number, and then we'll take care of it. So you go into Dash, you create it as a cell phone. Right? You put in the number, but by default, when we send a call to that, right, it's going to a computer, right? When we're going to an automated answering service, and that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. Probably doesn't even know it's supposed to, right? So the call doesn't get connected, and you're going, why isn't my answering service working for me? Or why are my customers complaining that they're not able to get through? In that situation, you want to come here under advanced for the cell phone or landline, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, put a check mark here. Then click on Save Changes. So now, when we send a call to this phone number, you don't say anything about this is a forwarded call or pressing 1. Instead, when we hear that pickup tone, right, so your answering service picks up, boom, connect the call. Right, so then your answering service handles it, and everybody's happy. Now, you could do this if this was your personal cell phone as well, right? You put on, hey, I don't want to have to press 1 on my cell phone. I just want to pick up and go. The downside when you're sending calls like you're set up your cell phone like this on your Dash account is if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we still treat that like a connected call. So your inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Now, for some people, that's fine. They're completely, they like that. They're okay, cool. Other people actually want the voicemails to go into their Dash voicemail box. So in that instance, you would want to make sure to keep that unchecked. And then something else that comes up every now and then is keep original caller ID. By default, this is checked. And what that means is when customer Mary calls into your system and gets routed to your cell phone, right? On your cell phone, you see customer Mary's phone number, right? The original caller ID that came into the system. You don't recognize it. You've been getting slammed by robodialers about extending your car warranty, and you let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to link back up with customer Mary, maybe you're not. So one thing that might help you is to uncheck this and then click on Save Changes. So now when customer Mary calls, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number show up on your cell phone's display, you would see this main company number show up on your cell phone's display. So hopefully you would eventually, at some point, start recognizing your business number. You're like, oh, I want to take this call. All right, this could make me some extra money. Next up is soft phone. So on the devices page, actually anywhere you add a soft phone or a web phone, first you get this little warning message, basically saying, hey, wireless VoIP technology, you might not be at your location that you have set for E911 purposes. Something to be aware of, but then you would click close. Now here on the devices page, when you add a soft phone, you're only adding a third-party soft phone, right? That means you're using someone else's application. You're not using the virtual PBX soft phone app, right? So if you're using, Xi from Counterpath, this would work fine. Now, if you want to make use of our soft phone app, you would need to add the soft phone directly on the user page to the user you want it to be associated with, not here on the devices page. All right, let's go over to groups. Oh, I guess I should, one thing. Any device that you're not using, right, you would want to click here on a little wrench icon, and then you would click on delete device. Right. In this case, you can see I have several, these devices are all assigned to a user, so they probably in use. But especially for any device that's unassigned, want to delete, especially if it's a VoIP phone, right? Just because that can keep your bill higher than necessary. Right. Next up, we have my greetings manager. So this page shows all my media files, right? Whether they're a main greeting, greeting, or hold music file, right? They're all here. Now, up here at the top, you can always upload new ones, right? You just give it a name, click on browse to find the file on your computer, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded mono under 1 megabyte, and then click on create greeting. It will upload the file. Down here, you'll see, right, the file name and then the source, right? Source, in this case, TTS, that's a text to speech. See just above that, I have upload, means we uploaded the file. And then down here, I have one that's recording, right? Recorded over the phone. Now, in most browsers, right here under this column, you can play back the directly in your browser, so you can listen to it to see if it's still valid. If you don't need it, you might as well get rid of it. And you see here, this particular account has over 60 greetings, which is probably a little bit excessive. Now, for some reason it doesn't play back, then you have the option here to download the file directly to your device, and then try to use your local media player to play that file back. And then finally, over here to the far right, we have the little wrench icon here. This is where you can rename the file, so it's something you can easily recognize, or simply remove it if you don't need it any longer. And so like you see here, I have a main open hours menu TTS. I can click on it, right? I don't see the content, so I don't know which one it is. So in that case, I'd probably want to listen to it first and then decide if I'm going to delete it or rename it. All right, groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, departments. These are an included feature, so there's no extra charge for it. But up here at the top, you click on add group. You need to give it a name and then an extension number, right? And it can't be an extension number that's in use. It's its own unique extension number. And then click and drag your staff members that you want to be a part of that group on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Oops. There. Let's see if... Oh. Oh. There we go. Right, yeah. Not sure what happened there. It's like I timed out or something. Anyway, so when you click on the name, right, you can always change the name of the group. And then here you've got group call attempts. The little arrows here to the far right, the box, so you can increase that number. This is how many times the system will offer a call to your group members. You also have the option here to delete or to save any changes you make. Next up, we have the members box. I have 5 people assigned to this group. And you see here, this is how this how I have this group set up, right? Basically, I'm offering my calls to my staff members for the whole time. Now up here on top, these are timestamps, right? So and I can adjust this last one. Default for new group is 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. So right now when a call comes in, it rings everybody. Now, for my staff, if my staff members have multiple devices, so let's say Bob's got 2 phones on his user, a call from his group will always ring both of his phones, as long as they're online/registered. Right? Now, there's a user feature called Follow Me, where you can say, hey, I want my soft phone to ring first, then my cell phone number, and then my web phone. Calls from the group ignore that feature completely. You just ring them all. Now, when a call comes in, right, let's say Bob answers the first call that comes in, right? He's helping a customer. Second call comes in, if he has call waiting enabled on his phone, right, he'll hear a beep. The customer won't, and he'll keep hearing a beep roughly every 60 seconds until one of the other staff members picks up. Now, in this kind of setup, that's probably not a big deal because one of the other staff members can pick up pretty quickly. But if we click this distribute button, so now I'm having calls always ring in this order, right? So Bob's always first. And that's fine if it's not a high volume of calls, right? Calls come in, Bob answers, handles it, and let's say a typical day or time frame, right? It's normally Bob can handle most of those calls before a second call comes in, right? But say call comes in, Bob's handling it, and then a second call comes in while he's still on that first call. The system is not going to skip Bob. It's still going to offer it to him for this 24 seconds, and then it will roll over to Aaron. Right? Aaron picks up, he's handling the call. Third call comes in, right? Going to offer it to Aaron or Bob, then Aaron for a total of 48 seconds before it goes to Peter. Right? So in that case, when you have a busy queue setup, right, you'd want to have more overlap with your first callers so that you're not waiting on hold too long. Right? The other thing, and these are sliders, right? So you can adjust it as necessary. Now, if you need to change the order, let's say Bob has a project that's high priority and he needs to focus on, you can click and drag his name to the bottom here, like this, and I click distribute again. So now Bob's last, right? So in a typical day, he's probably maybe getting one call, depending on how busy you are, that sort of thing. Down here at the bottom, this is where you would add more users to the group. And then you would click distribute again to put Dave here at the end, right? Or if you need to remove somebody, you would just click remove. They're no longer in here. And then after that, click on save changes. Right? You had to create an extension number for the group, and that just means your staff members can transfer calls to a group. Phone numbers. So groups can have their own phone number if you want them to. Now, this phone number is not a main number or auto attendant number, so it does not have hours of operation, meaning that this phone number is available 24/7. You can have multiple phone numbers, right? So you can add from spare or buy new numbers if you wish. Right? Got the little gear icon here to update the caller ID E911 or PPEN. And then there are group features. Bring back. So by default, when a call comes into a group, right, call gets offered to a group member, and then their phones start ringing. That ringing sound is then piped back to your inbound caller, right? That's ringback. If you don't want that to happen, you can instead enable ringback and then upload your own media file, right? .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And this file will play instead of that ringing sound. Rare cases, if for some reason we're not getting that ringing sound from your staff members' devices, then there's nothing for the system to replace. So then the inbound caller hears nothing. That's pretty rare. Only encountered that, I think, twice in action. To me, this is the most important group feature. But once you enable it, it's if no one answers, you want to send the call. You can send voicemail boxes. You can send it to another group, specific user, an ACD queue if you have them, or even back to your main number, right? The virtual receptionist. Allow call forward. If you enable this, this allows your users to, right? So like if they only have like the one phone at their desk and they're, oh, I'm gonna be at a, on the road, visiting customer sites, you have allow call forward, then they can set up forwarding to send calls to their cell phone so that when they're not in a face-to-face meeting with the customer, they can still handle the group calls. ID prepend, if you enable this is for your VoIP phone users, right? You can add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID, and this is a way again to let your staff know what kind of call they're about to get. This shows your numbers that you're using on the account. You can't unassign a number or assign a number here. This just lets you know where it is. We have the gear icon here, so you can update the E911 caller ID and prepend information for any number. On the spare numbers tab up here at the top, this is where you would remove a phone number from your account, right? You've already unassigned it, so it's not in use. Then you would come up here, and if you, right, you up here have options here for port or by port or sync. But once you click on the check mark in front of the box, now you have the option to delete a number. And I would click delete here. Make sure you want to delete that. I confirm. And now those numbers are removed from my account. So now I wouldn't be billed for those 3 phone numbers any longer. Buy a number, local toll free. This just allows you to add more spare numbers, right? So like you're about to expand someplace. Port a number means you're moving a number from one carrier to another. So from AT&T to VirtualPBX. A new port request, you give it a name, use local toll free, and then it's going to ask you to upload a recent copy of your bill, meaning within 30 days. After that, the system will ask you to, give the phone numbers you're porting, address associated with those phone numbers should match what your current carrier has on file for you. So in this case, what AT&T has on file for you. It does ask for a BTN, which is a billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, your BTN is the number you're porting. Right? If you're porting multiple, then you probably need to contact your carrier. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out. That's typically wireless carriers, but it can be some non-wireless carriers. This is typically something you have to get from them. Now, some will actually have it printed on their bill, so that makes it easier. Others, you have to call in and get a port out PIN number or account PIN number. After that, in the port process, you can download a blank letter of agency or LOA and then upload a completed and signed LOA. Now, the LOA, again, asks you for your company name and address. That information should match what your current carrier has on file for you. It does need a signature. Right? A digital signature is fine, or you can print it out and then manually sign it and either scan it in or take a picture of it. But typing your name in twice or printing your name will get it rejected and delay the port. Generally speaking, porting toll-free numbers is about 3 to 5 business days. I usually say expect a full week. And that assumes everything is correct. Local numbers, they have a range. Like some port within a day or two, others take several weeks. When it comes to porting, we're relying on the other carrier to release the number to us, so we can't control it. If there's any problems with the port request, right, we get a rejection notice. We double check to make sure there isn't a typo or another alternate piece of information that we could use, like in the case of an address error. If we can't find any obvious typos or alternate information that we already have, then we reach out to you, let you know, hey, we got a rejection, here's the reason, and basically reach out to the current carrier to find out what the correct information should be. And then we resubmit. Users page. This shows all your users on the account. A gray person icon standard user. Little blue suit, right? That means system admin, so they can do all the things we've been talking about today. Up here at the top, you click on add user, and you fill out the form, right? So first name, last name, pretty easy. Email address used for login, that has to be unique for each user. Right? So you cannot reuse an email address for multiple people. Then you create a password for them, and then you enter an extension number for them. The system will suggest an extension number for you, right? So this system was started with extension 1000, and it's saying 1018 is the next available extension number available. But you can change that, right? You can make it anything you want. Create a voicemail box for the user. By default, this is turned on, right? And that means that voicemail box is just intrinsically tied to the user. Here, you can decide if someone's going to show up in the user directory or not. You can change your mind later. Send emails to an alternate address. So when the system needs to communicate with a user, it uses the email address used for login, right? Voicemail notifications, right? Goes to the email address used for login. Same with password resets. If for some reason you need those emails to go to someone else, right? Completely different email address, then you would click here and then enter that different email address in the box below. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I personally almost always send that. Now, if you only need to create one user, right, you just click on create user. If you have more to add, you create user and add another. Once a user is here, you can click on their name, right? You can change their name at any time. Here is where you would change their credentials. Right? So you can change their email address or their password. You can also send them the password reset email here, so they can create their own password. Voicemail box pin, right here. You just enter a 4-digit PIN number, click on Save Changes. You can also review that under the Voicemail Boxes tab on the left. Right, here's the option to send to an alternate email address. Here's your option to include in the user directory or not. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. This next pull down allows you to select the time zone for the user, right? So that way, like their voicemail timestamps have the correct time. The flag icon here, this allows you to change the display language for the web pages for this user. You have the options of English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout measured in seconds, the default is 20. Now, Aaron here has follow me calling enabled, which is why it's grayed out. So the follow me settings handle that. Extensions box, users can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. Most of the time, there's no reason to. Phone numbers box, users can have their own phone numbers, right? You can buy spare or add from spare, buy new. Now, just like in groups, right? This phone number is 24/7. So if someone has their personal cell phone number here, they could be getting calls at all times of the day. You have a devices box here, right? So you can add devices directly here. For the soft phone, for example, right? You still get that warning message when we click close. Now you see the main difference here is from the devices page is down here at the bottom. It now says use third-party application. It's grayed out, so it's a little hard to see. But if you click on that, it will flip it to say use VirtualPBX application. Then you give it a name. Click on create device. And then you would click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Ariel here gets an email that has the login information, right, the credentials for the soft phone, as well as download links. So then they can use a soft phone to make and receive calls. Each email address can only have the one soft phone associated with it. So there is a limitation there with the VirtualPBX soft phone. And then we have user features. Caller ID number, this you can only enable this if the user has their own phone number. And when you enable it, you select one of their phone numbers, and then you click on Save Changes. This phone number becomes outbound caller ID from their VoIP phones instead of the main company number that we set up under the dashboard here. All right, so if we go back, whatever phone number you select here is the default outbound call ID for your VoIP phones. But if you enable the user caller ID feature, right, that then becomes their outbound call ID phone number. Virtual text. You may need to talk to our account services team to have this feature enabled on your account. There's some information they need before we can enable that on new signups. But once you enable it, you select the phone number on the account. So main number, auto attendant number, or a number associated directly to the user. So you select that number, you click on Save Changes. When you do that, this user gets an email welcoming them to virtual text. So it's possible a new staff member could have 3 sets of login information, right? The Dash login page, the soft phone app login information, and then the virtual text soft phone information, or virtual text login information, excuse me. Virtual text allows you to share numbers among your staff members, so you have multiple people keep track of texts coming in and out of your main number, for example, as well as allow them to text from their own specific number. Voicemail box. So the voicemail box was created with the user, and this is pretty much a default setup. Now, I'd have to double check this. Transcription, I believe, is still a plan-specific feature, and please keep in mind that the system just does the best that it can, right? It listens to the voicemail message and then types it out in that email notification to you. The email notification will always include the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and the voicemail box involved. By default, voicemail to email is on. That means we attach a MP3 file to that email notification. Right? That's why it's reiterated here. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot hold any more. Meaning either the user needs to go into their voicemail box and delete messages, or an admin has to go in to do it. You can have this option here to delete the voicemails after the notification email is sent. So basically, we send the notification, we attach the voicemail message, and then we would delete it from the voicemail box. Now, that limits what your staff member can do to listen to check voicemails, right? They can only, at that point, check voicemails via email. If you leave that unchecked, your staff members can call in and listen to their voicemails over the phone and delete them that way. They can also use the user portal to listen to voicemails and delete them. Follow me, again, for users with multiple devices, and that doesn't make sense for this user because he has none. Let's go down here. Right. So when you first enable it, it looks like this. You have to tell the system which phones you want to make use of. Right? When you uncheck it, it actually looks like that. All right, say, okay, you want these devices, how long do you want them to ring? Right? So then you click and drag. Right? You have a default ring time here, just like in groups, right? You can click distribute, so now it rings in that order. You click and drag and change the order. And you can adjust the sliders so it rings the whole time, etc. Any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Fax box. Choose to have users have their own fax boxes if you want them to. Right, this would be either instead of or in addition to your main fax box. You can select a number so they have their own fax box number or an extension. I recommend making use of a phone number. That way this user can send and receive faxes. If you select an extension number, they can only ever receive a fax. And even then, you're kind of limiting them, right? Because some, or at least the electronic fax services I've looked at, they don't have an option to send a fax to an extension number, right? They're only sending straight to a phone number. So you're relying on that person sending a fax to be able to send to an extension. It's just basically additional barriers making that work. Conference bridge. When you enable a conference bridge on a user, the main thing you would need to do is set up their PIN number. Now, by default, the video conferencing is disabled on a new conference, even then, when you enable it, it's only good for your staff members, right? Anyone outside of the system, not going to be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding. So you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. They actually don't need you to do that. Call forwarding is something as a system admin would need to do. So failover mode is when a user's VoIP phone becomes unregistered. Call comes in. When failover mode is enabled, the system will automatically forward the call to the phone number you designate. Right? So you turn on failover mode, you select mobile or desk phone, then you enter the phone number, right? +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then you click Save Changes. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this, right? So still not recording anything because you're basically the system wants you to tell it what kind of calls am I recording, right? So inbound internal, coworker Bob called. Right? Inbound external, that would be customer Mary called. Right? Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob, and then outbound external means I called customer Mary. And then you will click on Save Changes. Oops. Oh, sorry. Each account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording all calls, you may want to talk to our account services team about AWS integration. That allows you to link your Dash account to an AWS account of your own, right? So then you can store like your call recordings with AWS, and typically their data storage at high volumes, especially, is much better than ours. Music on hold, you can choose to have your staff members have their own hold music. You just click enable, upload a .mp3.wav recorded mono file, and whenever they press hold on their VoIP phones, that's the file that will play instead of what we set up on the dashboard. Do not disturb, if you turn that on, that means callers to this user will go to their voicemail. Right? Their phones will not ring. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. We just need to set up a hot desk ID number for this user. So if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, for example, I just say, hey, make your hot disk ID their extension number, and then click on Save Changes. So this is for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling, right? So say I come in the office on Tuesday, I sit down on desk number 2, I pick up the phone, hit *11, that turns on hot desking on that phone, I enter my hot disk ID, and the system will tell me calls will now be sent to this device. So the rest of my workday, any call that's earmarked to go to me will ring at the phone I'm sitting at. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, right? Enter my hot desk ID, I go home. Next time I come in the office, say that's Thursday, Angela's sitting at desk number 2, I say hello, and I move on to desk number 5, do the same thing, right? Pick up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, and now calls are coming to me at desk number 5. Voicemail boxes. This shows you all your voicemail boxes on the account. The main voicemail box is something the system creates for you automatically. It's always going to be there, and it's not assigned to any user. Right? Any voicemail box that has an entry here under the user column means it was a voicemail box that was created with the user. Up here at the top, you can create your own voicemail boxes. You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Click on Create Voicemail Box. So when you come here, you see here's a voicemail box. Here's a voicemail box number. And this one doesn't have a PIN, so I can set one up. And then I would click Save Changes. Under Advanced, you would go to Greeting Media. Especially for any voicemail box you create on the voicemail box tab here, you want to probably either use the pull down to assign an existing file or upload a .mp3 or .wav file recorded in mono. and then you click on Save Changes. Now, there's also the option here for temporary. This allows you to put in a vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected under temporary, it will play, even if you have something also selected under media. Until you set the temporary file back to none and click on Save Changes, the temporary file plays. Right? Once you put this back to none, then the media file will play. Recipients. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, right? They already have a built-in recipient, right? That email address used for login. So these other addresses would be in addition to those. Now, for any voicemail box you create on this page, you want to make sure you click here to add at least one email address. And then you enter the email address. If you need to add multiple, you click on the Add button here. It creates a new row. Once you're done, you would click on Save Changes. And then we have options. So once you have a media file in place and recipients, you click on Already Set Up. Here you have the option to attach messages to email. Here, if you want to delete them after notification, etc. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, call logs. This shows your call history on the account. Yeah, today, this week, and this month. Little green arrow to the right, that's a call that came into the system. If we have one down, probably further down. Yellow arrow to the left means this call that went out. Yeah, clicking on the rows can give you more information. So you see here, the call came in and went to this particular device and probably connected. Normal clearing means the call ended normally. That's a good thing. Right? If you see something else, that means there is some sort of unusual problem. Right? We sometimes see recovery on time or expire. That normally indicates a network problem with a VoIP phone. Now, you can download these files to CSV file. Custom, you can set your date range. Actually, let's that. All right, so now I went back. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. After that, you would have to contact our support team so we can escalate. Our engineering team can go back up to 18 months total. After that, the data is no longer available. So if you need your call log data for any kind of compliance reasons, I'd recommend doing so at least once a month. Again, heavy call volume, you might have to go week by week to download the necessary files. Feature codes. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This page is also on our support pages, so you don't have to always log in to see them. There's also on our support pages a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has information, but also a little help icon here to basically give you some context on how to use it or use them. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. So you would come here, you would click Edit Blacklists. If you don't have a list already, you would click on Add. Otherwise, you can just click on an existing list. Right? Needs a name. And then here, you have the option, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? Anonymous call just means when a call comes into your system, are we getting valid inbound caller ID? Right, the number. If for some reason we're not getting that, then it would show up as anonymous. So you can turn that off or on. And then down here under a list of existing numbers, you click Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And you keep clicking Add until you're done adding numbers. Once you're done, you click Save here. Then you up towards the top here, click on Back to Settings. And then you make sure that list is on the right under Selected. And then you click Update. Right? So now any phone number that are on these 3 lists, if they try to call any of my phone numbers on my account, they're blocked, right? They get busy tone. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager. So you can see the various faxes that have come into your account under the various fax boxes. You'll see the date and the time, what number it came from, right? The number it was going to, number of pages. You can download the file. Once you've checked it, you can also delete it if you no longer need it. Outbound faxes, again, you can select the fax box you want to work with, and you can see the successes or failures, right? But again, you see the date, the time, phone numbers involved, pages you can download. If you see a failure, you would want to hover over where it says fail to see if there's additional information. Like user busy just tells you when every time we tried to call, the fax number was busy, right? So when you see failures on the outbound fax page, that means we had problems with communication with the other phone number, whether that was initially trying to get connected, right, user busy, or even after we connected, there was some sort of other problem. Now, if we go to email to fax tab, or email to fax logs, excuse me, this is where this shows you any errors that the system had with processing the request that came through, meaning we didn't actually try the other fax number yet. You'd want to click on the little eyeball icon to the far right, and you'll see here under errors what the problem or the major problem was. In this case, no valid attachment. That could be no attachment at all, or it could mean something other than a PDF or TIFF file, right? So someone like uploaded a JPEG or XLSX. Number Manager, this will take you back to your spare numbers page. Reports will actually open up a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature, so available on some plans and not on others. This allows you to create your own reports. On our YouTube channel, you can go and see a demo of this, the advanced reporting demo, and show you some of what you can do. And if you're interested, then you'd want to talk to our account services team. Voicemails, this will take you to your voicemails tab, right? So you can get to any voicemail box on the account and see what messages they have. Right? You can see if they have new messages, how many messages they have. As an admin, if you click on the box in front, you can move it to a different voicemail box. You can play it back. You can download it here as well. All right, call center. This replaced the ACD queues or ACD queues Pro. I was afraid it wasn't going to work. This opens up a new tab, and then you have to log in. But then you can see your queues. You can manage your queues. Basically, all queues are essentially now ACD queues Pro. So for right now, it's just under our YouTube channel, going to the ACD queues Pro demo, and you can see what you can do there. But essentially, you can you can eavesdrop on a call, barge in. You have statistics, you can update hold music, etc. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. Right, you click on Create Rule. I'm just going to edit an existing rule here. Right, you would give it a name, and then you select a phone number on your account from this pull-down, and then you select what you want to do. Right, so you can use a feature code, or in this case, what I said is based it off area code. So whenever my staff members dial a 408 area code phone number from their VoIP phone, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 phone number. Right, what I did here is instead I use a feature code. So whenever my staff members dial *550, they enter area code and phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. And likewise, it looks like we set one up here for toll-free where my staff members enter *844, and whenever they make an outbound call, it will show this 844 number as their outbound caller ID. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. It doesn't matter what phone they're using. Right? If they're on an inbound call, they have a little blue box. And over here under active inbound calls, right, there'd be some more details about each call like who they're calling and what the phone number is. If there's a parked call, they would show up under here under parked calls. It would also show the parking spot number. Recording Manager, by default, that will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.net. It just uses your Dash login, and you can see your recordings, listen to them, download them, etc. If you're making use of AWS storage, this will actually change the name. I believe it's, I forget what they change it to, but it would link instead to your AWS account and show you your call recordings that way. Again, listen to them, download them, delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software, like Zapier, for example. Basically allows you to do more with your Dash account. We do have a demo on our YouTube channel. Actually, it's a webinar, Introduction to Zapier webinar. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com. You can see sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software. Both of those are pretty useful resources. Now, this is programming, so it might be beyond a lot of people. So something to be aware of. Basically, you would click on new webhook here and essentially fill out the form. Click on create webhook. Then you need to link this on the other end to your other software. So that's why you would want to use either that demo or developer.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly, we have the user portal here. Each user has their own individual user portal, right? So this is where I would go to check my own voicemail, for example. So here I can listen to it. If I click on the box here, right, I can change its status. So I can change it back to make it new, right? To remind myself I need to, handle this particular issue. I see the date and the time, who it came from, where it went to. I can play it back. I can download the file. Call history. I can view my own call history, and I can go back and look at a particular week or month in that case. Not sure why nothing showed up there. Faxes only works if your user has their own fax box, but they can see their fax history. The contact list, this is so your staff members can see everything within the account in terms of other people's extension numbers or auto attendance or groups, etc. It's not something they can edit on their own. Like your sales staff wouldn't be able to add their client list here. This is just something within the account that they can view. Conference tab, again, useful for staff members that have their own conference bridge. Over here to the right is where they would adjust their PIN numbers for themselves and for anyone who joins their conference. They have the option here to have people join muted or deafened, or play entry and exit tones. Once they're in a conference, they can come here, use a plus icon here to invite other Dash users to their conference, lock a conference so other people cannot join, and mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the conference call. Also, while on a call, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So like you can mute a specific person or kick out a specific person if necessary. The settings and devices tab, this is where your staff members enable call forwarding on their own. They just put a little check mark here and then enter +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then click on save. And that is everything. So I don't see any questions. So I thank you for your time today. Again, we do record these trainings, so you can always come back and view them later. Again, if you're making use of ACDQs, I do recommend taking the ACDQs Pro demo. But again, you would get there by clicking on Call Center, logging in again, and then you can manage your queues that way. Thank you for your